Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.
Hi, I'm Michael Hyatt. Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University. I'm here with my good friend, Lisa TerKeurst. In case you don't know her, Lisa is the New York Times best-selling author of a number of books, including The Best Yes, which is a book I refer people to all the time because it helps you say no, and it helps you even more importantly say yes to the things that matter. She's also the president of Proverbs 31 Ministries, has an enormous reach to a lot of women and men besides, and I've invited her on today to talk about how you can increase your influence and have greater impact in the world. So Lisa, thanks so much for agreeing to come on.
Hey, thank you. It's an honor to be with you today, and I really am excited to be able to help influencers. I'm passionate, like you are, Michael, about helping influencers because it multiplies my influence, so it's a great joy to be here today.
Awesome. Exactly how I feel. Well, for people that may not be as familiar with you, could you kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and what you love most about what you do today?
Well, what I do is I help connect people, their everyday life to biblical truth. So sometimes biblical truth, if you open up the Bible, sometimes it can feel complicated, it can feel hard to understand, and it can feel like I can read this and maybe I'm supposed to read this, but how can I connect it to my everyday life? What difference can it make? And no matter where you are in your faith, actually the Bible is the best leadership book I know. It's the best influencer go-to book that I know. So I love helping people, not just anybody, but everybody, connect biblical truth to their everyday life. So that's what I spend the vast majority of my time doing. How I do that, how I deliver that, is through technology. We have quite a large social media following through Proverbs 31 Ministries, and then I have my own social media as well. And then we have email lists that we send out daily devotions just to give people some inspiration and encouragement for today. And then our latest endeavor is a new app that we have called First Five, and we can talk a little bit about that and just about the trying to understand exactly why would we jump into that endeavor as well. So I'm very excited about that too. Yeah, so that's what I do, and then some of the different ways I deliver that kind of content.
Fantastic. Well, you've got this immense platform today, but I want you to kind of go back to the beginning of your journey and talk about how you got started. I've heard that story before. I'm always fascinated by it, and I think people would be inspired by it.
Yeah, so I got started not really intending to grow up and write books. I didn't major in college in writing or anything like that. I didn't even know it was possible. Like when I was a little kid and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would either say that I wanted to be the first female president of the United States, or I wanted to be like a teacher or a nurse or something, because I didn't know that you could grow up to be an author, a speaker, an influencer. I just didn't know that that was even possible. But I remember I was the kid in school who always got so excited when the teacher assigned a book report that we'd have to stand in front of the class and present. Everybody else would have this pit in their stomach, right? But that was my best day in school. It's like, oh, I get to stand in front of everybody and say something? Awesome, you know? So I also loved when, I remember when my dad, he brought home a bunch of typewriters one time because there was this new technology that he was going to try out at his office called the computer, right?
Right.
So he brought home all these typewriters, and I was obsessed with these typewriters. So I remember as a little girl, I laid my hands on the keyboard of the typewriter, and I thought, I don't know enough words yet to write a book, but one day I will. And so I had little clues growing up that I was passionate about this, but I didn't I didn't have any clue how this would really play out. So when I graduated from college, I worked in the business world, and then I became a stay-at-home mom. But I was pretty, I was pretty miserable. I had this drive inside of me to do something, and I wanted to have great influence over my kids, but I knew that I needed to have another outlet. So I helped start this ministry called Proverbs 31 Ministries, and because a friend of mine asked me, she said, hey, I'm starting this ministry called Proverbs 31, and I was like, great, I'll help you. I'm good at marketing, and so I'll help you. So I joined her, and I was with the ministry for about 4 months, and I was like, hey, why are we called Proverbs 31? Because I had no clue. And she said, that's a chapter in the Bible. And so that tells you how much I did not really have any business helping start a ministry, but that's how I got started. And slowly, as the ministry grew, I got opportunities to write things. But it would be many, many years and many rejection letters before I had my first book.
That's awesome. I want you to talk a little bit about growing your email/mail list, and at the beginning how you did that and how it got transformed as you went on.
So my team came to me, and when I say team, I'm talking like maybe at that point I had 3 volunteer staff members and maybe 1 part-time. So I'm not talking like, well, when my team of 60 paid full-time people came to me. No. So when I say team, just picture very basic. Like we didn't even have an office. We didn't have a copy machine. We met in the McDonald's playground. Okay, so it was like very, very, very basic. But they came to me and they said, we really think that we see a need for people to have encouragement every day. So we think we should start a devotion where we could write a little short, like maybe 500, 600 word piece that we would send out for free to people's email, and we'll just call it Encouragement for Today. And it'll have some biblical truth in it, but mainly it'll really just be, our whole desire will be to encourage other people. And so they were so excited about it, but in my brain, I thought that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Because number one, I thought this email thing is never going to stick. Because why would somebody sit down and take time to type out all the words? We have progressed to the telephone, people. Like, why would we not speak the phone? Like, that makes no sense to me at all. So I was a naysayer from the beginning. But luckily, I had really smart people around me, which is crucial. If you're going to be an influencer, you got to make sure you're not the smartest person at the table, right?
Absolutely.
So we tried it, and we put out just a real simple notification. I think at that point we had a super basic website, and then when I would go and speak, I would tell people, if you enjoyed my speaking today, then sign up for our email list called Encouragement for Today. Well, long story short, it grew beyond what I could have ever imagined. And what started out as like 20 subscribers grew to 100 subscribers, grew to 1,000 subscribers, and now our weekly reach, because we put Encouragement Today out not only through our email list. I think our email list is 750,000 now, but we also put this daily encouragement on our Facebook site, and our Facebook site has a weekly reach of about 20 million. I think we've got nearly 3 million followers. So the reach has been tremendous, and I guess at the end of the day, what I learned from that is pay attention to what your team identifies as a big felt need in the marketplace, and if it's a sweet spot of what you typically do and you can meet that using the current form of technology, do it, and it will be good.
That is awesome. What a great takeaway. And by the way, you're not a person anymore. You're a media channel. I mean, that's huge.
Oh, I think I'm going to say thank you, I think. I don't know.
Okay, so your story took an interesting twist that went through Liberia and ended up on the Oprah show. I want you to talk about that.
So my husband and I, we had 3 little girls, and we're completely overwhelmed. Now, these little girls were very big blessings in our life, but they we have 3 very, very strong-willed kids who are girls with their own mind. I don't think you know anything about this, Michael, but I'm just telling you. We had a lot of strong-willed estrogen in our household.
I hear you.
So our little girls were 9, 8, and 4, and we had no plans at all to expand our family anymore. But then I went to a concert. I met these 2 beautiful boys, ages 13 and 14, from Liberia. God clearly spoke to both my heart and my husband's heart that this was part of our life assignment. And that as much fear as I had, you can imagine, bringing teenage boys into a home with 3 little girls ages 9, 8, and 4, there was tremendous fear. But the Lord really challenged me 2 things. One, I felt like I needed to stay home for 2 years, and that if I would stay home for 2 years and give everything I could to make sure that my family bonded together safely, that my ministry would grow more in those 2 years than if I stayed involved. Now that seemed like a crazy promise, honestly, but I did feel like that could be true, and even though it seemed very scary. And then the other thing was that it was one of the greatest gifts I could give my kids, to teach our kids that our family was not brought together just to build a house, drive a minivan, and develop a comfortable, cushiony life, that our family was brought together to be on assignment to make this world a better place. And it's one thing to teach your kids you should love other people, but it's a different thing to invite them into a situation where they have to sacrifice some things to love other people. And so in the end, after much prayer and talking to a lot of wise people, we adopted these boys. And so I did stay home for 2 years. I did very little speaking. I did no writing. I let my team of mostly volunteers run this very young organization called Proverbs 31 Ministries. And sure enough, during those 2 years, the ministry grew more than we'd ever grown before. And it was such a cool thing. Then after 2 years, I felt like it was good to put all the kids in school, which we did, and then I started the dance of running an organization and being a mom of 5 kids. But it was good, and I will tell you, my kids are mostly all grown now, and if you were to talk to my kids, they think it was the greatest thing in the whole entire world that they have a mom that writes books and does speaking engagements, and most of my kids are in ministry today. And so it's a really cool thing, and it wound up being great. And the boys are doing fabulous. They're 27 and 26. One is married, gave us our first grandchild. So I'm a grandma. Can you
Congratulations.
I know. And then my other son just got engaged, and he'll get married next year. And one of my sons works for my husband. The other son he graduated college with a degree in business and works for Walmart Corporate.
That is fantastic. So how did you end up on Oprah?
Well, Oprah's best friend, Gail, heard about our story through some mutual friends, and so we got in the Oprah magazine after a lot of conversation, and I guess Oprah reads her own magazine, maybe, and so she read the article, loved the story, invited us to be on the show, and so we've been on the Oprah show now, I think, well, when it was still in existence, we were on twice, and then we've been on her Oprah Where Are They Now show several times, and then Oprah wrote a book and put our story, or mentioned our story in her book, and said that it was on her list of one of her top most favorite stories of all time. And wow. So it was really cool. It was neat. It was one of those things that not something I ever did to intentionally grow my platform at all, but it was making the world a better place, and then God just saw fit to bless us in that way.
You know what's really cool about that, Lisa, is that you were faithful to what you'd been given, even sometimes when it was counterintuitive, like stepping away from the ministry when it was at such a vulnerable stage. And then these doors were opened to you to have extraordinary influence. I mean, you probably could have never even dreamed that you would have that kind of influence, and yet here you are, and there you were.
Yeah, I agree. That gives such a testimony to my husband and I are big life plan people, and I know you are too, to create a life plan. But we always have this little, all of this that we can plan, but God. Like,
Yep.
we just leave enough room to where when we feel something happening that we have an opportunity to make the world a better place or to invest in other people or to demonstrate humility in some place where it seems like it might be better to exert more pride in that. But I've just learned over and over and over, the greatest influencers are not necessarily the ones who are most confident in their ability, but the greatest leaders are ones who are determined to use their influence to always help other people. And so I think it has a whole lot less to do with confidence and a whole lot more awareness to help other people. And I've just seen it over and over and over again. When I said about making my ministry about helping other people, and that can be true with business too, then Truett Cathy used to say, you help enough other people get what they want, and they'll eventually help you get what you want. And I have seen that play in my business, in my ministry.
Well, and Truett was so right about that. I want to switch gears here for just a minute and talk about books, because I know they're central to your work. You've had several New York Times bestsellers. I know you think about books in a very unique way. You and I have had conversations about that. In fact, you coached me in the creation of this new book that's coming out finally this next spring. I'm really excited about that, and thank you for the endorsement for that as well.
You're welcome.
But I would like to just for you to talk about what role books have played in the building of your platform, and particularly what role they could play for somebody who wants to have more influence.
Well, on a grand scale, having books that can go into places that you can't personally travel yourself, your books will be a great messenger to go into places and businesses and homes where you can't personally stand and influence, but your message can go through a book and influence lots of people, a lot more than what you could ever physically speak to. So I think on a grand scale that's really important. But on a practical scale too, when people hear you speak, they're going to want to take something home from that experience. And so I knew I needed to write a book when people were coming up to me after speaking engagements and asking me, where's your book that I can take home? I want more of what you just shared. And that's a really strong indication that it's time for a book. And, we live in a day now that we don't have to have a publisher necessarily to have a successful book. Certainly if you do, then that's great. That just means you'll have a partner in the endeavor. But if you have a lot of people asking for your book and you don't have a book, now is the time to really think about it, and think about it in two ways. One, that you need to make sure to write what people are asking for. Don't go rogue with your message. It's like if people hear you speak on a business topic, then they want more of your business advice. Don't go then and write a memoir and expect that that book is going to do what the people are asking for it to do. So really think about intentionally, what is that felt need? What is the audience asking? And usually, when you and I walked through this, Michael, I said, when you're coming up with the topic of your book, you need to always think about what people are asking for. And usually people are asking for an answer to a question that they have or a problem that they have. And so if you can provide that in book form, that's great. So that's the first thing to consider. The second thing to consider is that if you have a book, that can really help you support your business or your ministry financially, because being able to sell your book will give you an opportunity to not only get that message out to a bigger audience, but it'll also allow you to maximize the income that you can make that can then help you grow your business or grow your ministry.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So how did your books get on the New York Times list? I mean, everybody wants to know the secret sauce. Was there a secret sauce? And I know you talked to me about what you try to do strategically in your books, but it really had to do with the way that you write the content. And I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked me that, because actually, after you and I worked together, I remember asking you for an endorsement of my consulting work that I do to help authors, and your endorsement has become my go-to answer for this question that people ask me all the time. So people
Awesome.
ask me all the time, how did you get your books on the New York Times list? And I remember what you said when I helped you. You said, I helped you learn how to bake the marketing buzz into the content of the book. And since you said it so much better, I've ripped off your endorsement, and I say, you know, if there is a secret sauce, I mean, it's such a complicated thing, and I always tell people, please don't make that your ultimate goal. Like, don't
Yes.
make the New York Times bestseller list your goal, because there are a lot of factors that play into the Times list as to whether or not the Times will even consider you. And it's not the ultimate stamp of approval. It is a credit, but it's not the ultimate. So, you know, just make sure to keep it in perspective. But I do think that most authors are asking the wrong question. Most authors say, in this social media world, I know it's important for people to talk about my books. I know conversational marketing is crucial. So how do I get people talking about my book? And I say, you'll never hit the New York Times list asking that question, because it's the wrong question. The right question is, how can I make sure that my book is entering into conversations people are naturally already having? Because that's where you unleash the power of conversation around your book. So how do you do that? Well, you make sure that you listen before you write. Really listen to people. Listen to the questions that they're asking, the problems that they're having, and then you provide a unique answer or a unique solution with your book. And I cannot guarantee it'll hit the New York Times list, but I can guarantee you will unleash the power of conversation if you do that. So I'll just give you one really quick example. My first book that hit the New York Times list was Made to Crave. So that book, there are lots of books out there about helping people lose weight. This book is not really a weight loss book, but it does address if you have issues with food, which I did, and if you have issues with your weight, which I did. So, but as I looked at the marketplace and I listened to people, the marketplace did not need another diet book. You walk into Barnes & Noble in January, and there are more diet books than one person could read in an entire lifetime.
Yep.
So people weren't asking, how do I get healthy? We all know how to get healthy. We need to eat less and move more. That wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't helping people find the how-to. The problem was helping people find the want-to, the lasting motivation to actually stick with a healthy eating plan and carry it all the way through and then maintain it. So I decided to look for a book that contained not the how-to, but the want-to. And I couldn't find it, so I wrote it. And when that book came out, it definitely struck a chord with people. And in January, lots of people are talking about, how do I lose weight? How do I lose weight? It's a high goal. You know, it's on my New Year's resolutions list and everything. And it was amazing. People just, I didn't have to market my book so hard, because one person would read it and say, wow, I finally have the right perspective. And this book, Made to Crave, gave me the right perspective and motivated me to actually stick with healthy eating. And I lost the weight, and there were lots of success stories, and the power of conversation took off. And that book stayed on the New York Times list, I think, 27 weeks, and then dropped off and popped back on, and dropped off and popped back on. And so my point is, listen before you write. Understand people are not eager to talk about your book. But if your book can enter into conversations they're already having, then you'll unleash the power of conversation, and that's where that marketing sweet spot can really happen.
Wow, that is so good. Such a great strategy and such a great illustration. I want you to think for a moment here as we get toward the end of this interview that you're having coffee with somebody who, you know, somebody that attends your conference, you know, somebody that wants to get the word out. And I've spoken at your conference. I loved it. I know these people well, but that's the people that are listening and watching right now. And they're a little scared. They're not sure the world cares about what they have to offer. What would you say to that person? 2 or 3 things, either by way of inspiration or just practical tips where they ought to focus and how they ought to get started.
Well, one thing I would say is I was tempted when I got started to I thought, let me find my favorite author and let me attempt to write just like them. So my favorite author at that point was Max Lucado. So I opened up Max's books, and I looked at the way he did things, and I tried to become a Lisa version of Max Lucado, and it completely fell flat. And then I thought, okay, well, that didn't work, so let me open up a fiction writer that I absolutely adore. So I opened up Francine Rivers, and I thought, let me become a Lisa version of Francine Rivers, and that was a worse disaster than trying to be Max Lucado. Terrible. So I eventually realized that the world already has a Max Lucado, and the world already has a Francine Rivers. The world already has a Michael Hyatt, and the world already has a Lisa TerKeurst. Like, you don't need to become anybody but the very best version of you. And so the best thing you can do is take great care with your message and look at it like there is no word that you will ever write that's wasted, because every word that never gets published is a stepping stone to the words that will eventually get published. And work at it just like if you were going to try to build a muscle. If you go to the gym, just lifting one 10-pound weight one time and then asking somebody, do you like my muscle? And they say no, you really haven't given it a fair shot, right? I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. Me too. And so you've got to work at it, work at it, work at it, work at it. Press through. Find your unique writing voice. If you're funny, be funny. If you're poignant, be poignant. If you're kind of dry and businesslike, be dry and businesslike. But just let your brilliance shine, because the world needs your brand of brilliance. The world needs your brand of beautiful. And the only difference between me and all the other writers who had a dream 21 years ago is that I didn't give up. And so that's what I would say. Work like the Dickens, but make sure you're working to not become a good version of somebody else, but that you're working to become the best version of you, and be honest about that, and then don't give up.
You know, the thing I love about that is it's the truth. You know, there's all kinds of get-rich-quick schemes or get-published-quick schemes, and certainly there are faster and slower ways of doing that. But I think at the end of the day, it just takes a lot of practice, a lot of finding your voice. And I just wonder if just for a second you could talk about the thing, and I just thought of this, but that thing you talk about, the different voices, and assuming the voice that you assume, and I think is a great voice for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So I think there's three voices when somebody sits down to write, and really it's the tone that you're using to deliver your message. And none of these are right or wrong. It's just you have to understand, how does my audience best receive this information? What tone do I need to use based on the audience that I have? So one tone is, I call the tower voice. And it's where, pretend like you're up in a tower and you're speaking down to people, not in a derogatory way, but you're broadcasting your message. You're the expert, and you're going to say a lot of words like "you should." And this is kind of a typical voice that maybe an older business audience would expect, or maybe even somebody who's not into social media as much. They want to have you speak to them in more of an old school fashion. Just tell me what to do. I don't really want this to be a conversation. I want you to be the expert. I want me to be the receiver. So just tell me what to do. And so if that's the tone of voice that your audience wants, then it's okay to speak to them as if you're in the tower, they're on the ground, and your directive is "you should." The next tone of voice is at the front door. And when you're at the front door, you're on their same level, but you're not going to share a lot of personal stories. You may share a few, but it's going to be not as much about your experience current day. It's going to be more about, I used to struggle with this thing that you're struggling with. I overcame it, so now I'm an expert, and I'm not going to tell you about my present vulnerabilities, but I'll speak all day long about what I did to become successful. And so the directive there is you could get to a better place like me if you do step 1, 2, and 3. That's the teacher voice. That's at the front door. And then the third kind of tone of voice is out in the field. And the directive there is not "you should" and not "you could," but out in the field, if you're using that tone of voice, it's like you're putting your arms around the people that you're speaking to or writing to, and you're saying, together we can. And you are not the expert. You're not the person who will just talk about past struggles but not present struggles. You're the person who's like, hey, buddy, I'm like 1 or 2 steps ahead of you in this thing. I still struggle with this, but I've learned some stuff. And hey, man, together we can go further. Together we can overcome. Together we can make a difference. And at the end of the day, you've got a friend. And you make friends with the people that you're speaking to or writing to. So again, none of those voices are necessarily better or worse, but it just depends on how is my audience set up to receive the message that I'm going to give.
That's such a powerful framework. I love it. So what's next for you in terms of growing your own influence? What is on the horizon that you're excited about?
Well, probably the thing I'm most excited about is we just 2 months ago launched an app that was in the dreaming stages for several years. Everybody kept saying, Proverbs 31 Ministries needs an app. Proverbs 31 Ministries needs an app. And the thing is, I said, you know, if we just create an app that is just an app version of our website, we're going to do people a great disservice. We need to look in the marketplace, listen to people, and develop an app that will really make a difference, that people immediately say, not just, oh, I'd like to have that app one day, but I got to download that app right now today. So we spent a lot of time listening. And what I discovered is that how we spend the first 5 minutes of our day, how we use those baby neurons that are formed when we sleep at night, wake up in the morning, neurogenesis has taken place. We have all these baby neurons, and how we use those baby neurons first thing in the morning will determine so much about the pattern of thought we have the rest of the day. So I said, what if instead of when people set their alarm clock in their smartphone right now, they're giving those first minutes, those baby neurons, they're giving those to social media, text messages, voicemails, emails. And so from a Christian standpoint, I said we need to be exchanging whispers with God before shouts with the world so that we can have better positive thoughts throughout our day. So I decided to, my team and I, we developed this app that you go into our First 5 app, you set your alarm clock in the app. In the morning when you wake up, you swipe your alarm clock off, and immediately 5 minutes worth of content that's positive, life-giving from the Bible. It will hijack your phone. So you have to read that first. And then after you give those first 5 minutes to thoughts that are more God-honoring and positive, then you can go into your text messages and emails and voicemails and all of that. So, and secretly between me and you, if somebody sticks with us for 4 years, in just 5 minutes a day, we'll take them through the whole Bible. But that's just a side note. So, but it's really exciting because we thought of what are people asking for? What's a problem that they're having? What's a question that they're asking? You know, and we answered that with our First 5 app. When it released, it was incredible. We wound up trending #1 in the Apple Store. That is near to impossible. For several weeks, we were in the top 10 of all apps that are downloaded. We made this app free, so we were competing against every other app out there, video games, everything. And so it was so cool for people to pull up what's trending in the Apple Store and to see this First 5 app. It was incredible. And we've had well over 400,000 people download the app. It's tremendously high engagement, hundreds, some days thousands of comments about it. So it has been unbelievable, and we're so excited.
So can people get to that by going to the App Store and just searching for First 5?
Yep, it's FIRST, the number 5, First 5, or if you want to look at it through a web page, you can go to First5, FIRST, the number 5.org. Fantastic.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. This has been inspiring. It's been practical. It's been hugely helpful. And I know the people that have been watching this have gotten a lot of benefit from it. And I just want to encourage you guys that are watching this to go to LisaTerkeurst.com where you can connect with Lisa, get on her email list, and get her best content and connect to everything else that she's doing. And don't forget, we've got a contest going on right now. We're going to give away 3 memberships to PlatformUniversity.com. The way that you compete for that is to share this interview and all of them that we're doing at the summit. The more you share, the more likely you have an opportunity of winning. So again, Lisa, thank you so much for being with us. It's always a delight to be with you. I can't wait till the next time we can sit face to face and connect.
You are so welcome, and I'm such a big fan of the Platform Conference. I'm wondering, can I enter the contest? Just kidding.
Absolutely, you can.
No, but seriously, I encourage every single person, don't be selfish with understanding that there's an opportunity like this interview, all that Michael does, the Platform Conference, everything. Don't be selfish with that. Share it with your friends, because the only regret you'll have when you go to Platform is that you didn't bring more of your friends. So make sure to invite your friends and tell everybody about it. So Michael, thank you for what you do. You're such a blessing.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Great to be with you. Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.